Show some love for Erik Finman.
You'll never see me tripping. Got the vision, I don't even need assistance. Bob Ross. All I do is chill. My life is a thrill, for real, Bob Ross. I be too calm for the drama. You don't want.
Second debater is Zach Tanenbaum.
Bob Ross. You'll never see me tripping. Got the vision, I don't even need assistance. Bob Ross. All I do is chill.
Zach Tanenbaum. If you guys don't know that much about crypto, I'm going to give you what I know because I'm probably a slow step above that. Cryptocurrency is a new digital currency. So when they say cryptocurrency, that's what they're talking about. When they say Bitcoin, that is the currency. It's the most famous one and perhaps the first one. And then the blockchain is the technology that I legitimately have no idea about. So hopefully they do, because I always hear people say how good it is, and I'm just like trying to make money. I'm like, yeah, blockchain for sure. Hopefully it goes up. But first question, we're going to start with Erik. So we're going to talk about our current financial system. Do you think it's a scam? Do you think it's legitimate? I'm talking US dollar, central banks, national debt. Do you think it's sustainable, real deal, or no?
Yeah, so on the current financial system, particularly in the United States, I don't really think it's sustainable. Is this on?
I think it is.
Yeah. Awesome. I don't really think it's sustainable as it currently is. I mean, you look at the debt, you look at the the way the Federal Reserve is run. You might as well just have Trump be running the Federal Reserve, just because they're kind of the line between them is really there's none so much. So I mean, I think So I don't really see the financial system. I think it's kind of a lot of people talk about cryptonomics in the cryptocurrency space, of like, look at these big wild ups of Bitcoin and big wild downs, and it's like, what is this backed by and all that. I think you have a lot of the same complaints about just the current financial system as a whole. So yeah, I think there's ways to probably work around it and fix it, but probably not the most legitimate of things when you actually look at the books and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. Zach, what do you want to add to that, or what do you think?
No, I 100% agree. I think the greatest example, when you take a look at what is a scam, right? It's deception, it's fraudulent activity. Look, the closest example that we have is the GFC, the global financial crisis in 2008. How many people have understood what happened there and what led up to that? Okay, so probably one of the biggest scams and frauds in the history of our country. It resulted in 10,000 people committing suicide directly related to that. 10 million people lost their homes. That was a direct example of an example of how the fraudulent activity can happen. It's just one example. So I totally agree with Erik. I think absolutely there's problems with our current economic system. It's not sustainable. We can go into fiat currency and the asset backing and what's behind things. And I think that's an important part, but that can go on for days. So the fact of the matter is our national debt, as Erik alluded to, $22.5 trillion. If you were running your own business and you were losing money at a rate of, let's just say, $100,000 a year, that you were losing money, do you think you'd still own your car, own your house? Do you think that, is that sustainable? So if you take things on a smaller scale, it's not. Is it sustainable that we have the largest asset on our balance sheet is student loan debt? Is that sustainable for a culture? Is that sustainable for a society? Is it sustainable that we're insolvent? That our liabilities far exceed our assets as a nation? So I think that's my position, and I agree with Erik.
Awesome. Give a round of applause. So when talking about Bitcoin, everybody always talks about the blockchain. I've watched maybe 4 or 5 YouTube videos, and I kind of get it, but at the same time, I really don't, which is why I want to host this debate. It's supposed to be this revolutionary technology that makes cryptocurrency exceptional. What is it, Erik, and why should I be impressed by it?
Yeah, so blockchain, I think that people have really overcomplicated it. It's literally just like a chain of like files. That's it. It's like, imagine like in Finder or in just in Windows Explorer. It's just literally a chain of files together. And what kind of blockchain has done for currency, kind of the data that's in those files are just transaction data. So it's almost like a very public receipt. So everybody that, one of the big problems of people creating their own currencies to compete with the US dollar was that how do you know that these weren't just like counterfeiting them, right? And then how do you know this guy isn't just printing a bunch of them? How do you know that this transaction was even real and he didn't just duplicate it? So there's actually a lot of different kind of US dollar competitors done in the United States before the US dollar, or before Bitcoin was kind of the main one. So that was a big problem. So yeah, basically there's blockchain, just a list of files. People have thought about, or a chain of files. People thought of putting other formats like photos in this. Where I think it gets really interesting is, you have contracts right now, like a paper contract normal, right? With using kind of this technology, there's something called smart contracts, which is where, and it's really not that complicated. It's really just kind of it's a smart contract where you basically have like almost a contract rather than backed by paper and legal stuff. It's backed by code, or you can look at the code and see how this smart contract operates. And it's completely independent running. You don't need a kind of a current, legal system. It's just something where you can actually look at a contract in public. Like if you want to buy a house, rather than having to go through all the current legal ways of buying a house, you could actually just make a smart contract, which makes it so it's a completely independently run contract. I know it's actually not that complicated, really. I know maybe I'm making it sound complicated, but if you look at it kind of based on, and you can do that for so many interesting things, we can get more complicated with it. You can have, there was this Uber competitor where basically they did this smart contract where basically they don't even need like an Uber type company middleman. They basically just had a list of drivers, a list of passengers, and then they would connect the two automatically using the smart contract. So that basically no need for a middleman company. So that meant that the Uber, or this Uber competitor, the drivers would make more money and the passengers would pay less because there was no middleman. So that was kind of something that's very interesting. People thought about to do this for energy as well, having kind of a kind of smart contract grid. So rather than going to your current company, I remember I grew up in Idaho, it was a Vista. So rather than going to a Vista and then doing that, there's something called a solar coin or something like that, where you could actually set up a kind of a solar panel on your house, kind of connect it to neighboring houses if you want, and then it automatically redistributes the power using this kind of smart contract, this blockchain smart contract method. So it's very interesting. So in places where, like in Africa, where the power grids are either run by the government or a corrupt government, or just a corrupt company that is kind of maybe run by the government directly, rather than relying on those, you can just rely on this smart contract where you don't need the middleman for this. So basically it eliminates the middleman in so many different things. So right now the main use case has been currency, eliminating kind of the middleman in the currency space, like the Federal Reserve and kind of governments running your whole currency operation. But you can take this, to Uber, to Dropbox. Someone started something called Filecoin, where it's completely decentralized, where you don't have to trust Dropbox with your files. It does it in a whole decentralized way. So yeah, Uber competitor, Dropbox competitor, and I find the most interesting to be energy, and you can even do this for other utilities as well. And again, this is all really complicated, but it's actually not. It's just kind of a way for people to have contracts and agreements with each other, just written in code, and then not having to rely on this whole, the current infrastructure that the US has. And it just works better, it's simpler, it's easier, and I think that's why it's transformative.
I want to ask one question real quick and we'll round it up. Is it safe to be setting up files, and is it safe and secure? Would you say more so than what we have now? Or?
I'd say more so than what we have now. What's beautiful about a smart contract is you can, if just like a lawyer, it takes a lawyer to maybe read a really big contract. If you're know how to read smart contracts, you can just look at all of it, and people actually test out flaws. There are bug bounties so if they find a bug in the contract almost, you can go and you can make money by fixing it publicly. People will put out bounties for that. So it's actually very secure, and you can look at everything. And usually, if you submit a smart contract that is insecure within like an hour, people will know that it's an insecure smart contract. So
awesome.
That's very interesting.
So it cuts out the middleman, safe, secure. He's very bullish on it. Do you feel the same way about blockchain? Or?
So I think it's important, there's a number of things that are going on and that are being pieced together to create these different technologies. Blockchain is separate from cryptocurrency, it's separate from the decentralized model, it can all be brought together. And blockchain, to what Erik said, it's a redundancy-based file storage or data storage system. And what that means is it's basically storing data in a way that it's using the previous data that exists, that it has tracked, to create the new data. Basically copying itself, making it very difficult to change the information once a transaction's been validated and verified, once new information's been added. And the ultimate applications is exactly, and it's where the world's going. We're trying to make efficiencies. We're trying to cut out the excess fat, the excess work that's causing a lot more a strain on our system. It's a lot more expensive, right? So by cutting out the middlemen, you can bring down costs in a lot of different areas. Those applications apply absolutely everywhere. But when you're applying it to a cryptocurrency, when you're applying it to with a decentralized model, is where it gets a little bit tricky, and it is a little bit more secure than our current system. I'll give you that. But is it the ultimate security? Is it the ultimate efficiency? I don't believe in and of itself. It's not the revolutionary in and of itself technology. It's been a way, I think, to spark the discussion, to spark innovators like Erik and like other people to try to solve different problems, to try to figure out, okay, how do we make this whole global economy, how do we become more efficient, with the goal being true peer-to-peer connection, meaning that I don't have to go through anybody to send you money. I don't have to go through anybody to come up with an agreement with you. I can do that on a global basis, and how do I verify that? How do I validate that? And how do we create a system of trust in a world that we don't trust?
I mean, imagine a world where you don't have, even necessarily politicians running things. You don't have kind of inefficient, sometimes companies and corporations running things, but you actually have it where you have these things that for hundreds of years are now going to be run completely just off math and code in a way that's visible and accessible to everybody. Where you have corrupt countries, Venezuela, countries in Africa, and even in the United States, where you can just have you won't have like this energy company's power grid, this government's power grid, you're just going to have the internet's power grid. You won't have Uber or Lyft self-driving cars, you can have just the internet's self-driving cars. It's incredible like how the world will change, where you just have a completely open access to all these different things. You see with loans, you can now do completely smart contract-based loans. It's absolutely fascinating. So people that could never get loans before are now getting crypto loans backed by other cryptocurrency. So it is opening up a whole new financial world to people where they normally couldn't. Opening up energy and power and even water to different places where it's just it's hard to say just how, put into words how amazing and incredible this technology is and how it's going to really transform everything.
All right, next question. Thank you. So with Bitcoin, they say that Satoshi Nakamoto developed Bitcoin. No one really knows who this guy is, if it's a group of people, a government. I've even speculated, and others have, that it could be AI. I don't know that for sure, but no one really knows who created Bitcoin. It's pretty crazy. So Erik, and then we'll go over. Is this a concern that we have no idea who created this amazing technology, or is that something that we shouldn't?
I mean, does anyone know who created Bluetooth in here? No. I'm sure you can look it up, but it's who created Wi-Fi in here?
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye. Okay. Who created the internet? Not Al Gore.
What if that person wanted to keep anonymous, though? What if that person wants to keep anonymous? Is that possible?
I think that's what they want.
Yeah, Satoshi, so he's anonymous. Satoshi is anonymous, but my point is it doesn't matter. The people that are not even anonymous, nobody knows, nobody average person knows. Okay. And what's beautiful about it is you can just go up, look at the code yourself. Bitcoin's completely open source. You can look at every single part that makes Bitcoin Bitcoin. It's completely public, none of it's hidden, so it doesn't matter. And so what, even if he was known, people don't know, GPS is amazing technology. I don't think anyone here, I don't, know who started GPS. It almost kind of doesn't matter. As long as the technology is secure and you can look at everything publicly, I think it's a really beautiful thing and it's kind
So
of
what does that do to privacy?
Privacy? What?
What does that do to privacy?
What does that do to privacy? What
Yeah.
part of it?
I mean, everything you're talking about. I mean, I don't want this gentleman knowing my finances. This is my boy. I don't want him knowing what I got in the bank.
Absolutely.
You see what
So
I'm
this
saying?
is this is actually two things. So for one, here I'll get you. Sorry. So for one,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
it doesn't have like a name tied to it. It doesn't have a name tied to your transaction history.
Okay, then what's the security?
So
Why can't he take it if it's no,
So yeah, basically, rather than using something like a password, when you create a new Bitcoin wallet, they'll give you a pre-made kind of 16 or so words. So it's kind of like a new kind of password that they give you so you can access everything. It's called your keys, your private wallet keys. And then the name of your wallet, it's like almost an account number that nobody else knows except you. So unless you told everybody this is my account number, then they couldn't see it. But this account number, you can look it up and see like the transaction, but it doesn't have any name. So unless you publish it under your name, nobody will know. And then two, yeah, you have a more secure version of a password. So it's actually incredibly even more private than a lot of current financial apps.
Yeah, that's actually really, it's an important question. So the blockchain applied to Bitcoin does allow people to be anonymous, and that's a problem. It is a real problem when you're talking about connecting the globe, because anonymity is what fosters a dark economy, an economy of human trafficking, an economy of predatory behavior. In fact, I think when you actually compare Bitcoin to the other options out there, it's actually performs poorly in its speed and its efficiency. And so the real benefit to Bitcoin is the ability to be anonymous and to trade that, to be able to trade and move money without having to report that. So for that reason, I actually think I think it may be something we're probably going to get to, but it limits its ability to actually be a global solution. Now, your transactions can live in this public ledger space, and ultimately, if you're not super careful, there's ways to track it back to you. You have to really know what you're doing. I think there's a barrier of entry, a significant barrier of entry. It's not easy to use. It's not easy to secure. If you really want to secure it, you have to take it offline, put it into a cold storage, and keep it there. So if you ever wanted to do real transactions and big transactions, you connect it. You have to put all your passwords into your wallet and then go through this process. So it's not as easy as just logging into your bank account and sending money. And the way that we connect the world is not by hiding from each other. The way that we connect the world is by being responsible, being accountable for our actions. That's where there's been a major problem with these new currencies that are popping up that are keeping this anonymous system where they're violating KYC laws, know your customer, know your client. They're violating anti-money laundering, anti-terrorism laws. And that's what this currency really enables, and I think that's the big demand, because it doesn't really, other than its ability to move anonymously, it doesn't have a real tangible value. And where can you go to, unless somebody wants that currency to move money around, where can you go trade it out for anything else, right? You're dependent upon somebody else finding value in that. So there's many flaws, but I do think that the model here, it stimulated a lot of young minds and a lot of innovative people to try to come up with these better solutions. But I think we're seeing that the anonymous culture, the anonymous world, isn't really the world that connects us all. It's the world that isolates us. And we're seeing the same issues in our current internet. The entire internet is flawed. We're under siege. We have hackers and scammers and predators. Our kids are susceptible. Our kids are vulnerable. We're seeing massively increases in depression and anxiety. Are we heading in a positive direction? And the current internet space that we live in now is that anonymous environment. It wasn't built for the way that we're using it. It was built for the governments, and it was built for the scientific communities that already trusted each other. Now anybody can jump onto the internet, grab a laptop pay cash, jump onto the internet and be completely anonymous. It's causing us to isolate from each other. It's not going to connect the globe. There needs to be, and this is where smart contracts are absolutely an awesome innovation, where we can hold some level of accountability. But the problem with a decentralized system is who's holding that accountable. And in a decentralized system, it's more of the same. It's more of the same that we have. It's corruptible by money. He who has more money can come in and take advantage of the system. And it's still, and Bitcoin itself, when we're talking about that specifically, it's still tied to our current economic system. It doesn't have an independent source of value.
So be
Yeah, Erik. That's the heart of the argument. I'll let you guys just go off that. You know, he says the anonymous part's a problem. It's more the same. What do you think, Erik?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can look at the anonymous as a pro or con depending on what you want. I mean, to me, there's actually more anonymous coins than Bitcoin called Zcash and Monero, where it has enabled people in Venezuela to not die because they're starved. Like, their currency in Venezuela is so worthless that they're actually using Zcash, Monero, and Bitcoin to be able to just buy food, you know, when normally they couldn't. So I think the anonymous of the ability of politicians not being able to look at kind of what I'm doing and be secret. You see even refugees, they're taking, some of them I've seen, they've taken small wallets on something the size of a USB stick. Rather than having to leave everything behind, they're able to take their money with them. And imagine, you know, what could they do if everybody had money rather than having to rely on other people to be generous and give? Wouldn't it be great if they could take their money with them, and they're starting to? And I think that's great. You know, maybe they can settle somewhere really interesting, create a safe zone or whatever. So I think the there's pros and cons to being anonymous, right? But to me, you know, a lot of people, they stockpile gold, you know, and silver, and I'm very pro doing that. And cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, Zcash, Monero, are better, more simple, more seamless, more secure ways of doing that. So to me, it's something that has saved lives. And U.S. dollars have been used way more for human trafficking and black market activity than the entire market cap of all cryptocurrencies combined.
100%. And it has a longer history as well to be able to do that.
Well, you could even look at like since Bitcoin started, or even in just the past year, you can look at it where, I mean, obviously more momentum, and even lower level currencies, fiat currencies, you can see if they're being used more. Bitcoin is actually a terrible thing to use for black market activity. See, even India, they said fiat currency and bills and paper is so bad for tracking money laundering. They put chips in every single new bill. They said all your old bills, all your old money is worthless.
Taking it out of circulation.
Exactly, yeah. Taking it so that way they can track with a chip each one because paper isn't too insecure.
Yeah, 100%. There's other ways. My point is that when we're talking about Bitcoin, that really, compared to any of the other currencies, that's its really only differentiating value other than speculation on it, right? And I think there's the other point that I want to make is there's a difference between privacy and anonymity. Okay, there's a major difference, and you can achieve privacy through anonymity. But again, that's not a way that we can safely have a safe place to interact and work with each other. When you make a deal with somebody and we're both anonymous, how do we hold people accountable? What happens, right? But there's ways in which to be private so that they don't know your personal information. And that's where a hybrid model where there's a centralized system that needs to be audited and trusted can do that. And that's why I think you need the hybrid of the two in order to have a success, with the goal being a connected global world where we're working together to solve problems, where we're connecting and building teams and communities and working together, you need to have the hybrid model.
You agree with that, or you think it's when it comes to US dollar?
With smart contracts, it's totally up to you. It's backed by the people that participate in it, the parties that participate. So if I do a smart contract to buy a house without going through the traditional kind of system, or I make a smart contract for like a loan or anything, or for energy, it's backed by the people that participate in it, and I think that's the same, and you face repercussions because it's listed in the contract, usually financial repercussions if you don't follow through, and that's like coded hard in there. So basically money, paying a financial penalty automatically. You put the coins in escrow, in kind of a crypto escrow, and then do that. So it's done that. So, and again, with cryptocurrency, you can have like anywhere from really anonymous cryptocurrencies to even very your name is tied to every coin cryptocurrency. That's what Facebook is trying to do. They put that, Facebook is starting their own competitor to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and they say in their white paper, we're going to track everybody's identification, personal information, just identification with those coins, with those crypto. They said that's their goal, actually, in their white paper.
Yeah, they also, the white paper also claims that it will be able to be anonymous. I think it's tied to their Facebook profiles, which is...
They actually put in that their future is identity. This is a huge thing in the blockchain space, in the crypto space, is doing identification on blockchain. So effectively putting your passport, rather than having it be kind of issued, a passport-like system issued, rather than having it be issued by the state or someone, you have it on blockchain. And I think that is more what they're referring to, more of a future thing, and from my understanding and my reading of it. But to me, that's very scary of having Facebook, with all their leaks, all their data hacks, 100%. having control of your information. I think what's beautiful about the cryptocurrency space is the freedom to choose what you want, rather than you're forced to do it this way. And I think that's what's beautiful about the cryptocurrency space. And you had similar complaints about the internet, having it be too open. I think just having the freedom to go to any website to do what you want, to be anonymous or have your name on it, I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I think that being applied to cryptocurrency, to a bunch of things, of being as free as you want, having the freedom to do to participate as much as you want to participate in it.
I agree, and that's comes from the deep libertarian in me. I'm with you on that. Unfortunately, and that will always exist. I think that it needs to exist. But is that free space with anonymity? Is that a place where we want our kids growing up? Is that a place where we want them to be influenced? How do we protect them in that space? It's about the future, right? How do we verify information in that space? That's what I'm concerned about building community. And so I agree. I think I agree with everything that you're saying.
I just think that should be up to the parents for our children. It should be up to parents choose, just like how your parents choose your kids on how you should use the internet. I think is and device policy, and usually, I think that's the best way to do it.
They don't have that option right now, though.
It depends what cryptocurrency you use. Like you can go on, and you can use different services. You can go use Coinbase.com for Bitcoin, and you can go through all the steps.
But that's just in a currency system. I'm talking about the applications of actually the whole internet, and that's where you're seeing platforms coming up, blockchain platforms trying to recreate a version of the internet. Some projects that I'm working on as well. So it's kind of all tied into each other,
and if there's a whole new blockchain decentralized version of the internet, again, I think it should be up to the parents on how they choose to regulate it. And what a beautiful business opportunity for someone to create a child filter for the new blockchain internet that will come about.
Correct. And but when that exists, so when it does exist, a better connected world with accountability, how many transactions actually take place that don't need that anonymity, that want to be tracked, that because of the tracking give them more safety and security. It's the majority of everything. So once that model exists, why go into the other model? What is there to benefit anybody else in the anonymous world? It's really only the people that want to be anonymous.
We're
Where's the value at?
And people who want to be anonymous will be anonymous, just like the guns. People will find a way to get around it no matter what. And people have gotten around it for years, you know?
100%.
Can I ask you real quick, what at age 12, what made you at age 12 get obsessed with this?
Oh yeah, I think I was with my older brother and we were at like a Ron Paul and the Fed protest or something back in the day. And then some guy had, people wore shirts and it was kind of a thing at the protest to ask what shirt you were wearing. So some guy had a Bitcoin logo shirt and he was a little bit of a, you know, libertarian but also a hippie at the same time. So it was a little bit of a juxtaposition. And then, and I asked him what the shirt, and he's like, it's gonna end Wall Street, bro. And then he comes off. And then,
Social libertarian.
Social libertarian, so that was interesting. And then, me and my brother got into it. He was a little bit older, so he kind of really taught me the ropes, and we figured it out together. And then, he got into it kind of $2. By the time I got into it, it was like, $10, $12. It was crazy, and being a part of that community. And since the beginning was an incredible thing. But it was a fun protest, and we were like running from tear gas and whatever. It was fun.
Got one more question, and then you could also give your final statement while answering this as well. So, there's someone named Peter Schiff. He's very becoming popular in the anti-Bitcoin. He's against it, and he's all about the gold, gold, that it stands the test of time, it has real value. So I want to give you 3 currencies as we have it, and tell me which one you think is most valuable and where they're going to be in 10 years. So gold being one, the US dollar being another, and then Bitcoin, or you could answer with any cryptocurrency. So you can start. Which one do you think is going to stand the test of time, and which ones do you think aren't?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is gold. There's a major reason if you pay attention to where gold's moving throughout the world. Gold is a fixed supply. You can't really fake gold. And what I like to boil it down to make it really simple. At the end of the day, if everything else fails and you need to put food on the table, right? If you need to put food on the table for your family and you don't have the food, you need to get it. What will somebody accept that has food to give you the food that you need to survive? And gold is one of those things, commodities, things that people need, real tangible assets, and you can go back into an asset system, a bartering system. But gold is just one of the things that really you can't manipulate it. It has it's a standard, and I think that the US dollar, unfortunately, I don't think it will exist, at least as it is today. It might. I think there's instances where it could pair itself to future currencies, and it could underwrite itself. And I think that would be the smart move for the government and our current economic model. So it could be around. It would have to pair itself, I think, to whatever the future value is, and that's a tricky instance. I think Bitcoin will be around more for nostalgia. I think there's plenty of other currencies and cryptocurrencies that people will appreciate more and find more value in.
There's AI in the back. Hold on a second.
Not the first time. But I think gold's severely undervalued as well. I think it's intentionally so. But I'm very bullish on where gold should be. Now, there's a lot of other factors that go into that, but I look at gold not really as an investment tool. I look at it as an insurance plan.
Eric?
Yeah, I think US dollar at the bottom. I think we both agree on that. For number 3, I guess are we ranking them?
Yeah, and also I want to ask you guys real quick too. What does that mean for us, the United States citizens who run around with this money?
Well, I think you got to be careful, because the main way that the U.S. dollar is currently backed right now is oil trade, right? The petrodollar. So, and I think
which has changed as of last year. With China.
That's what I was about to get into. China is working on trying to get, so right now all the oil trade is done in the US dollar. That's basically what gives the US dollar value. And then now China is going over and trying to get it done in their own currency, the yuan, right?
Yeah.
I always get Japan and
Yeah.
China confused. And then I always like confuse them. I go to China and Japan all the time, and I always mess them up. So yeah, and then so they're trying to get it done in their currency, and then if that happens, if the oil trade is done in a currency not in the United States dollar, because what gives the United States, what gives a currency value is what you could redeem it for. So $1 gets you $1 worth of oil, and that's kind of how it used to be. $1 would get you $1 worth of gold, and now it gets you $1 worth of oil.
And all oil contracts
are all done in U.S. dollars.
It was all done in U.S. dollars.
So that everyone understands that with this, what you're basically saying is that every barrel of oil that's been bought for the last, I don't know how many years, had to be bought in U.S. dollars.
Yeah, since Nixon.
And when that goes away, the inflation that the United States has avoided, that the rest of the world has not, watch out.
It will become more evident for sure.
We're talking about stagnant earnings in the United States. The average family that's struggling now will be struggling exponentially more so.
100%.
And that's why I say you're right. I think the dollar's dead.
And like I said, I think there's a way for the U.S. financial system to pair itself to new innovations and pair itself to value to save itself if that's the course that they take. But this situation is happening. It's inevitable, and it just takes a while for information to get out.
So do you think Bitcoin can save us, or if not, what will? Because we need an escape plan. Come on, yes, I'll give you extra time.
Cool. So I would say cryptocurrency over gold. I wouldn't say necessarily. I agree with you. Bitcoin kind of probably more nostalgia. I think there's competitors to Bitcoin. I see Bitcoin as kind of a MySpace in this world. I think other crypto.
Do you think Bitcoin over gold, specifically Bitcoin?
I think some cryptocurrency over gold in the next 10 years. I won't say that. So I think some cryptocurrency over gold. And I think right now cryptocurrency for use as an emergency financial thing, I think right now, you see in Venezuela, they're using crypto and Bitcoin way more than they're using gold, because gold is hard to transport, it's very visible, and all that stuff. Where with Bitcoin, you can go and there's services where you can buy stuff off Amazon. So what they're doing is they're buying food, groceries off Amazon to a nearby country, taking a boat from Venezuela to that nearby country, picking up blueberries and stuff, and then bringing those groceries back to feed people. And I think that is where I see the use case. And it's just something, it's something you can store on your computer, your phone, something the size of a USB stick, even something the size of like a tiny SD card, millions and millions of dollars. And so I think it's more efficient as a digital gold, and I think it's more usable online versus gold. It's more usable. To me, I know more places that I feel like take Bitcoin than gold. Like I can go to Baskin Robbins, they take Bitcoin, so they don't take my gold ingot or whatever. But maybe that would be buy up the whole place. So
I think ultimately we'll be moving gold with digital currency, and I think whether it's actually the current cryptocurrency that we have now, the fact of the matter is that it's a vehicle, it's a contract that can represent an underlying value. And so I think that's where things will go, and you'll be able to break up gold and other assets and exchange that. You'll be able to break up your revenue and do profit sharing. I think the most exciting possibility that digital currency, that cryptocurrency has sparked, is the ability to raise capital for new business entities without having to sell equity. That has been a huge hindrance on us as an economy and for small to medium-sized businesses. The inflationary nature of technology, we're competing on who's got the better technology, not who's got the better services and the better products. And what happens there is, in order to actually compete on the global stage, we're forced to sell equity to venture capitalists at early stages when we're the most vulnerable. And what this does is it creates this pyramid structure where all roads lead up to selling to the big companies. And so we're seeing them suck out the innovation out of the people that can really change things and increase the competition in our world. So I think that's the digital currency can represent so much. It's the ability to transfer value in any form, and I think that's what the most exciting thing about it.
Awesome, and I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to just give a final statement, and just to get your point of view so everyone knows, our currency used to be gold-backed, right?
Yes.
And they just stopped doing that at a certain point?
Nixon switched it to oil, effectively. Or wait, no, they got rid of it before that, and then Nixon put it on oil.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, back in
There was a tiered process.
back in the 30s, we've kind of taken the same path as the Roman Empire. We started to debase our currency over time. Why do we do that? Because it gives carte blanche to be able to fund other programs, to fund wars, to fund anything that without accountability, right? And so ultimately, leading up to the 70s, that's where Nixon officially took us off the gold standard, which we really weren't completely on, but no connection to gold whatsoever, and we officially became a fiat currency. A fiat currency is a currency that is basically backed by the government. It's just because the government says it so, and the strength of that government. Every fiat currency has come to an end. Every one, and I think the average lifespan is like 30 years. And we basically hit that around 2008. And basically at that point, we implemented a quantitative easing program. And you can look this up from JP Morgan. They've actually issued massive papers on this, where the quantitative easing has never been done before in any economic model, a specific inflationary program to keep the ball rolling. Who wants to be in power when the whole system comes down? Who wants to hold that responsibility? It's because it's a power game, so push it off.
All right, so 30 seconds left, Eric.
You can do your 30.
Yeah, you can.
Was that your 30 seconds?
No.
All right, I'll do this.
I'll just say it.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say is, when you're looking at things, kind of use common sense. If people can't explain it to you, then I think you should be skeptical and find the people that can explain it to you. If there's different reasons to take a look at digital currencies, I think you should look at them either A, as an investment opportunity, and when evaluating that, don't drop your standard due diligence practices when evaluating an investment opportunity. I think just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that you should go into it. There's always an opportunity with something new to take an arbitrage and the getting ahead of the market and with hype and everything. But long term, definitely go through your normal due diligence practices. The other thing is hedging. Again, taking a look at hedging, it should make sense. This, as Erik was saying, it's really not that complicated. It does take time to learn, but there are certain basic economic principles that apply to everything. And don't drop those because you're afraid of missing out.
I think the cryptocurrency, blockchain, this whole space has just really begun. I think in the future, like I talked about before, you're going to see whole new ways where we interact with energy, how we interact with finance, how we interact with just the whole financial system. Every single industry is going to have to be a blockchain technology company in some way. Just like how every company had to be an internet company almost in some way, that's going to be the future. This is an amazing opportunity. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are looking to get into something, to look at industry and see how you can revamp it up, not just for the 21st century, but really we're going to the 22nd century here doing this stuff. It's amazing. So far it's saved lives in Venezuela and a lot of places in Africa, this technology. It's created amazing new business growth with so many incredible things. It has given more money. This is one of the greatest transfers of wealth to young people, and I think that's absolutely incredible, and it's an incredible use case. I think the use case for cryptocurrency is bad government and bad politicians. It really can help you and use as emergency, in my opinion, better than gold. So I think this is an incredible future, and I hope you in some way look into it and partake in it.